Welcome to the Knowledge Entrepreneurs Show, where we celebrate the innovators driving change in the education industry. At Edison OS, we've worked with over 500 knowledge entrepreneurs to turn their edtech ideas into profitable businesses. Hello, Mandeep. A very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for taking your time out in joining me on this podcast.
Thank you, Jagmohan. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for this.
It's my pleasure as well. Mandeep, my first question is, can you talk to us about your journey so far? You can start off from your childhood, the
Okay.
things that, whatever you want to share, all those things would have been a big factor in you doing whatever you're doing now. So, for us to kind of get a context to all the answers that you're going to share probably 15, 20 minutes down the line, I think talking about your journey so far will kind of help understanding the person that Mandeep is.
So this is the first time I'm explaining myself like this. So if I go back to my schooling days, Jagmohan, I was more of a introvert person. Okay, always stayed an average student, never an outstanding, never participated in any of the activities. I used to play with the friends, but never, participated in any competition throughout my school days. Then after 12th, I prepared for IITs. So I dropped for 1 year and joined some classes, but could not crack IIT. So did BTech from Indraprastha University, and then after that uh, worked with Dell for 2 years, and then I prepared for CAT. So from there, actually, my journey started because when I prepared for CAT, in the first attempt, I scored 60 percentile. I took coaching from one of the best institutes, and it was a group coaching, and it was taught by amazing trainers. And in the group, there were a lot of students, who are already prepared for CAT, and those who have given CAT. Then there are people who are weak in maths, good in maths. So it's a mixed batch. And in 5 weeks, there were 3 hours classes each day. In 5 weeks, everything was done. And after that, we were given the mock tests, and that's it. Prepare your own. So at this stage, I was completely lost. What should I do now? Because I have the study material, I have taken the classes, but I don't know how to proceed further. So in the first attempt, when I took CAT, I got 60 percentile, but I need 99 because I was preparing for IIMs. So this time I worked with one of my cousins because he has been through CAT and was passed out of IIM Lucknow. So I worked with him where he just tutored me on one-to-one basis, where he explained actually how to study. And while preparing, there were some doubts that will I be able to do that. So he was sitting beside me, clarifying knowledge plus my doubts. Because when I was practicing questions, I was getting a lot of questions wrong, and every day there was a struggle that will I be able to do that or not. So next attempt it was 99 percentile when I worked with my cousin, but I could not clear the interview round because again I was an introvert, so could not clear the GD rounds, could not clear the interview. So I joined Four School of Management. It's in Delhi for MBA. And after that, when I passed out, I worked with Aditya Birla in sales. But sales was not my cup of tea. I could understand. Being an introvert, it's very difficult to say hello to a person. How would I sell anything else? So then I thought of switching to teaching. And when I switched at that time, I was good with quant. I was fine with verbal. So I started teaching everything: CAT, GMAT, GRE. So around 2013 or 14, I just zeroed down onto GMAT. So there were certain reasons. One, the clientele, because it's completely premium. Most of the students who go out are working with the big four companies. So because of that clientele, I shifted here. And second, somehow I liked the exam. And from there, I started working with different institutes to get the exposure to GMAT. And when I started teaching at institutes, I saw the same struggle that I faced when I prepared for CAT. That it was a group coaching, 5 weeks, everything taught. After that, everybody was confused what to do. So from there, working there for an year or so, I figured out that main thing that I need to work on is that work with each student on one-to-one basis. And after the classes, exactly the struggle starts. Because over there, how to evaluate how you're progressing, how to give tests, how to give a mock test. So nobody was telling them actually how to do this. And I got trained from my cousin, so I knew the journey. So I just specialized in this area. So I started working with retakers. So because parallel to that, I was studying some marketing books also. So at that time, I came across Perry Marshall. So Perry Marshall is a Google AdWords. He has written some books where he taught about the creating a niche. So because when I started, I was teaching everybody, but I was not attracting students. So then he said that you have to differentiate yourself from everything else. And then I just came into that, I'll work with just retakers, those who have taken GMAT and failed. And from there on, it's more like, fun journey because now I track students. There are no, lot of outbound, maximum is inbound. So this is how it worked.
Brilliant. You know what? I've spoken to at least 4 to 5 GMAT trainers so far.
Mhm,
Nobody, nobody has positioned themselves as, I teach GMAT for retakers. And I knew since then, there is a little bit of marketing here because
mhm,
you're totally creating a niche. It's not that others are not going to be helped, others are not
mhm,
going to be able to help the retakers.
mhm,
But all those people who have that mindset of, I've taken GMAT before and need to do something are definitely going to choose you
mhm.
if they see all the 5 profiles in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
I think this is a very interesting strategy. And since how many years have you been using this strategy, Mandeep?
It's been now, I think, 2 years specifically. Earlier, because when I was getting the students, I was studying the pattern, the kind of students I was attracting. So I could see the 80-20 rule. Again, the Perry Marshall, he, told me to use 80-20 because you will see that pattern everywhere.
Right.
So from there, I could study that, okay, maximum is retakers. So I just marketed myself as a retaker specialist.
And it's interesting the way you use the word the students I'm attracting.
Mhm.
Uh, is there a little bit of manifestation theory behind it or whatever? Would you like to talk something on
Uh,
that?
Probably, I think when I started, there was a very clear mindset that I don't want to teach to a beginner because I wanted to, share what I've struggled through,
Right.
and that was a bigger. I would say that was the area where there is nobody.
Right.
Okay, even the best of the institutes over there, they're amazing teachers, but they're not students who have struggled and reached to the top.
Right.
So this is where my struggle, even in my engineering days when I prepared for IIT, same struggle was there when I prepared for CAT, same struggle.
Right.
So this was the area I could see that it is completely vacant, nobody is here. So I started, working on this particular aspect.
Got it, Mandeep. Mandeep, can you, share with us what are the marked differences that you've seen before the before your repositioning is teaching for retakers, and the moment you started using that word retakers, how did things change? What were you doing before, and what do you do now?
Earlier, what was happening is I was just because at that time I was establishing myself, so I have to generate the revenues at that time. So it was like I was running behind the students because I was doing calling, I was running webinars, everything was outbound. But as my experience was increasing, so I the things started changing because as I was getting more comfortable, now I want to get specialized into something because now I was stable. So from there, I just shifted to this retakers specialist. So what happened is now I don't get or rarely I get a call from a student who said what is GMAT.
Right.
Earlier I was explaining what is GMAT. Now if somebody asks me what is GMAT, I say go to Google and search. I have that confidence to decline a student because
Got it.
I'm clear I'm not going to work with you. So now the student has to qualify themselves to study from me. I don't have to get qualified.
Right.
So that has changed.
This is brilliant. You say that, you know, it used to be outbound before. You say you conducted webinars and all those things. I'm going to ask a lot of questions around this.
Sure.
But before we move on to the process that you are doing right now, can you please deep dive into the entire financial aspect of an outbound process and also the different steps? Say, for example, you said you did calling, you had to do webinars, and from webinars you had a funnel, and then probably a couple more steps before they'd convert, and you'd have to spend a lot of time and money. Can you please talk in depth about all these things, Mandeep?
Sure. I never spent a lot of money, and there was no funnel concept I knew until unless I read about Russell Brunson. That is what I'm doing now.
Okay.
Earlier, I never understood this thing. So it was a very simple strategy. There used to be a website called Urban Pro.
Right.
Okay, it was when I started around 2015-16 when actually I get into it. At that time, they also were getting into it. And then there was myprivatetutor.com. So these were the two websites from where the students just inquire for the tutors, and I was just paying them to get the
Mm,
number of the students.
right.
So from there, I used to give the call to the students in the evening, and if they decline, I can take their emails. And weekly, I used to run webinars.
Um,
So I put them into the email. It was all I was not using any software. Now I'm using, but earlier it was manual. So I just create a Excel where I just kept the record of them, and I keep sending them.
right.
So this was the only thing I was doing. Apart from that, I was making YouTube videos just to create my presence.
Got it.
So there's an official guide, and there are questions in it. So I just give the explanations to those questions that were giving me ranking in Google.
Right.
So I was just doing this much. So I stayed like this for I think 2 or 3 years.
Okay. The only money that you spent, I think, for the Urban Pro subscription for you
Exactly.
to get the numbers and the leads. That's how. So you used Urban Pro like a lead generation tool.
Exactly.
And what was your conversion rate, Mandeep, back then?
Back then it was I would say 10%. So every day there was like I don't know there was because sales was something and I was afraid of. So I learned one thing from Zig Ziglar. So he said that you turn up every day at the same time and do the process. And at that time motivation was also required. So I used every day 7 to 9 evening was only calls. Whatever numbers are there who didn't pick up, I used to call back, and it actually worked.
Got it. And were you still trying to fill your slots back then, or were you running full and were you filling for your next batches? How was that
I
going?
was never into the batches here. I was always
Okay.
into one to one. That's why there was not a lot of struggle
Okay.
because most of the private tutors are pretty expensive at that time.
Okay.
So I positioned myself in between the coaching institutes where there is a group running, and then there are private tutors. So in between there was a gap, a lot of difference in the pricing. So I just positioned somewhere in between.
Okay. So, Mandeep, when you say you teach GMAT, right? What do you teach some specific thing in GMAT or you teach the entire GMAT?
I teach the entire GMAT.
Okay. And this includes verbal,
Mm-hmm. Quant.
mathematics
Mhm.
is called as quant,
Yeah,
I believe,
quant.
right?
Yeah,
Okay. These are the two main things, is it?
two main things in GMAT. Yes, and I teach
And
both.
you teach both.
Yes.
Okay. And okay. So when you say you didn't have the concept of batches, you only had one to one.
Hmm.
So what was your typical like, were you selling the number of hours to students or was it a package? 20 hours, I'll finish this entire GMAT. How did that go? Or was it customized?
It was actually customized because there are students, who just want to work on verbal side,
Okay.
and there were students who just want to work on quant side.
Okay.
And secondly, it was not more of a even today. I don't work on the number of hours basis.
Okay.
It's more like I'll work with you for 6 months because I
Okay.
know there is a habitual change that a student needs. Habitual in the
Hmm.
sense, major problem in these exams is an anxiety issue because there is a time pressure, and under time pressure, the student freezes. Like brilliant student, but the mind is not working.
Right.
So there is a lot of expectations from that exam. So I just focus on reducing that anxiety. So once the anxiety goes down, the mind automatically works. So I don't do a lot of teaching. I do a lot of talking to them, telling them how actually you think, how you sit in the exam, how to actually work on under time pressure. That's how I work with retakers.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Because in that case, the amount of time that you spend with the actual subjects is less than the amount of time that you work. As I was going through your LinkedIn profile, and even there, you keep talking about mindset.
Hmm.
So I now understand, probably when you say mindset, you're talking about reducing the anxiety levels and probably making them behave normally even under those
Exactly.
test atmosphere. How do you go about this? Did you train yourself specifically for this, or was it from your own experience? Can you talk a little bit more about this,
Yes.
Mandeep?
Because when I was preparing for even my engineering for my CAT, so during my engineering time after my 12th, so most of the time was into my dreams. So there was used to be a book, and I was, the concepts were difficult, and we used to study. I used to study in the night. So at night you're already tired, and now you're studying something difficult. So you sit with that, you read first paragraph, and you feel like I'm not getting anything, and then you go into the dream world. That how it would be studying at IIT Roorkee. That was my dream college. So, and after
Right,
20 minutes, 30 minutes, when I come back, oh, now I'm tired. I need something to drink. You get a milk. So when I'm drinking a milk, I need some entertainment. So watch
right,
TV. So I used to waste like 1 to 1.5 hours of study. And by the time I come back to study, oh, now I'm feeling tired and I have to wake up in the morning. I have to go to school also.
right.
So this was the pattern. And
Hmm.
when you go and lie on the bed, at that time you're like, oh shit, again I didn't study.
Right.
Okay, that sort of tension was there. I wasted another day, and that was habitual.
Hmm.
That stopped me from getting into IITs. It was not that I didn't have the capability, but I didn't never had that concentration to prepare, study.
Right.
Next time when I was preparing for CAT, at that time I was fine that I could do a lot of practice. But the problem is when you're practicing, at that time when you get a question wrong, most of the students what they do, they never sit with that question and solve themselves. They look at the explanations for that question. And when you look at the explanation, at that time you feel like you get the question, but actually your mind has not given the test answer.
Hmm.
And in these exams, you always get a new question. You will not get the same question. Theory would be same, but if you're not trained on the approach or the application, you're gone.
Got it.
So this is what my cousin trained me, that you have to sit and solve the question yourself. So these two exams train me to train anybody for any aptitude test. So when I work with the students, they are in one of these states. Either they are in the thinking mode. So when they study, they are tired. So I tell them to change their complete disciplines. Discipline in the sense never study out after office. Either wake up in the morning when your mind
Right.
is fresh. Second, don't study on the weekdays. Study only on the weekends.
Okay. Okay.
So because you don't have to study every day, mind can retain that much information.
Okay.
So I just break that loop for them. Second, if the person is out of that thinking mode but into the action mode, but when you get into the action, you are like, I have to practice 1,000 questions, but I'll not do any question myself. I'll try a question for 2 minutes and I'll just look at the explanations.
Hmm.
So I tell them that you have to do only 10 questions and spend at least 1 hour on one question, because you will grow through you grow in your mind, you don't grow in the physical world. So till this growth will not happen, your score will not improve. So these are the two things that I just focus on majorly. Rest is like, when they practice and they fail, they get questions wrong, they start doubting themselves. At this stage, they need somebody who is ahead of them and tell them that this is the part of journey. So they trust me that what he's saying makes sense because there are results behind that. So they say, okay, he's saying that don't worry. So they don't worry. So just focus on that next step. So I design the next step for them so it makes easier for them to focus.
Very interesting. So you're saying that it's okay if you have to spend 3 hours on one question. but it's important the first time you crack it yourself, you kind of figure it out yourself using your own mind, so that 3 hours is obviously going to come down to 2 hours, 1 hour, and then probably eventually you're going to reach 5 minutes.
Yes.
But this is a process that one shouldn't try to avoid or
Yeah.
escape.
Yes. Yes.
Great. Sounds very simple, but very insightful. Because as you say, even I think anybody in India can relate to this. Because at some point we would have tried solving a question and then we would have given up within 5 or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then we would have seen the answer. We would have felt happy. But come the same type of question, we will fail because we didn't allow our mind to figure it out ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay. But how is this linked to being calm in the exam conditions, Mandeep? Is it because you know a little bit more better, or is that a separate exercise that you?
This is, I think, is more related to the concentration, Jagmohan,
Okay.
because
Sorry. Just to clarify, when I say calmness, I mean not being in anxiety mode.
yeah, coming there.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming there. See, what I have learned till date about anxiety is that either you're concentrated or you're anxious.
Right.
Okay, you can't be in both the states at the same time.
Mhm.
And concentration is a habit that you have to develop.
Mhm.
So when a student is not solving the question, he practice a question for 2 minutes and giving up. It's not that he can't do that. He has a habit of distraction. He gets
Right.
distracted. His mind goes into one direction or some other direction, and when he goes to another direction, he lose that concentration from that question, and from there your energies also start depleting, and you start doubting also, because you come back, you're doing a question, you start thinking about something else, then you come back, but by the time you come back you have lost a lot of energy, and then you
Right.
give up. But if you train yourself to sit with that question for half an hour, you go there, you are here, again I'm going to sit here for 15 minutes, again I go back, again I come back. So it's a repetition. So if you sit with the question for 1 hour and you can concentrate, then you cannot get an anxiety, because there will be a
Mm.
sense of achievement. When there is a sense of achievement, you get inspired. Then you don't need external motivation. When you're anxious, you need external motivation. So once something is there, once you do that, you can't get anxious because you are trained for that
Right. Right.
uncertainty. So if you're doing every question yourself, that means you're doing new questions yourself. So over there, your mind will not resist it because you have been trained that way.
Brilliant. This is brilliant stuff, because I think when you said you work with them for 6 months, this is what you mean. It
Yes.
just cannot happen overnight in an exam. You tell them something and anxiety is not going to go away. It's going to happen over a period of time, and the period of time that you take is 6 months
Yeah.
for a student. Brilliant. This is a very new. I'm sure after you listen to these things, it makes much sense. But if I'm sure you've taken your own time and your own experience to figure it out and solve it and crack this. I'm sure this is a very valuable thing. Okay, so when you say 6 months, Mandeep, let's say for example you get a call from somebody, and okay, first of all, how many months once one can take GMAT exam? Is it happening every month, or it
It's
happens?
every day.
Oh, you can, okay. You
You
can
can
take it
do,
every single day whenever. It's like an
yeah,
online thing.
online test. So you just have to book a slot. There are dedicated center, and now you can take it at home also after COVID.
Okay.
So it's every time, every day.
Okay, got it. And when somebody comes, you say that I need a minimum of 6 months to work with you and get your desired score.
Yes, normally everybody comes with me that I have a month and
Okay.
I need to give the GMAT. Earlier, I used to tell them, no, it can be done. Now I say, okay, let's do one thing. After a week's time, we'll take a call. So in a
Okay.
week's time, they get the reality. So they
Oh,
say
so you
now,
work with them for 1 week.
because initially, if you tell them it cannot be done, now I have a goal. How can you say it cannot be done? I can do that. They are not aware of the main reasons, but
Right.
they have to meet a deadline. So if I tell them upfront it cannot be done, there are very few people who are so much aware, but
Great.
most of them are not.
Great. I would take this as a business insight for all the tutors who'd probably be facing the same problem. It's perfectly right when a tutor listens to somebody and says, "Hey, you know what? 1 month we cannot do it." No,
Hmm.
But as honest as you are when you're saying that, you're also losing out on a business, because it's not that the student is not adamant. You just have to make them aware. So that's
Yes.
where you take that 1 week's time.
Yes.
And what do you do in that 1 week for them to realize that no, it's not possible in 1 month. It's gonna take 6 months.
So I start teaching them for, I take a class and then I give a homework. And I tell them that you have to write down step by step explanation to every question of the homework and explain me that every question in the next class. But the condition is you have to do it yourself.
Okay.
This much is sufficient. So once the
Okay.
student starts doing, and then he comes to me, he could understand that why I struggled last time, because I never went depth. I was, just trying it for 2 minutes and looking at the explanation. So he get the understanding, and then we have a chemistry also. And in first class, it's gonna be, we'll be doing a lot of discussions also.
Right.
So now he understands, and the things goes forward.
Great. Has there been a few cases where they've surprised you? You thought that okay, fine, we'll do it in 1 month.
Yes.
Oh, great.
So
Okay.
yeah. So normally what happens is I know 6 months is maximum that I work with a student.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no something like that. I cannot do that in a month's time. For example, December, I got a student who has been preparing for 1 year and given GMAT 3 times, scored 610. Now he wanted 700. So I said, and he said that I have only 20 days. Otherwise, what we can do is we can prepare again, but I want to give a shot. So I said, we have to just work on our anxiety and a few areas of verbal and quant.
Got it.
So through those discussions, because every day we were having classes, so I kept telling him that just keep telling yourself, I don't care what score I get, it will not decide my journey, my life. So when you keep repeating the same thing, anxiety automatically goes down because now you're not giving a lot of. It's not a high stake thing. It's normal thing. So once it's normal, you can face it. But
Right.
everybody cannot do that.
Got it. I'm sure this is a very rare case scenario, and
Yes.
most of them would be
Yeah.
that way. Got it. Now, Mandeep, taking a step back and going back to our discussion about how things were before you repositioned yourself as retakers. You said urban pro and all that process was there, and then you said you weren't even investing in any tools and stuff like that. And I think there was a pivot in the way you did things after that. Could you walk us through that? What were the changes, and how did you come about these things, more importantly?
Sure. See, I think that the one of the biggest factor was the fear. Fear was because when you reposition yourself as a retaker specialist, you're losing on a major market because
Right.
maximum are the first time takers. So that means I'm just getting off with that 50% market.
Right.
Okay. And at that time, there was no other source except Urban Pro on which I could rely.
Okay.
And probably I think 2018-19 onward, I started making videos for Facebook. I stayed on Facebook at that time. Facebook was the peak.
Yeah.
But I was not getting anything from Facebook. And
Right.
I didn't understand that my audience is not on the Facebook. I was not too active on LinkedIn. And I think 2020 onwards, I got really active on LinkedIn, where I
Mm.
started writing a lot of content. Every day I was writing. So from there, it opened up another market for me, or another place from where I started getting leads and a lot of leads. So my dependence on Urban Pro was decreasing. So when I have two sources, then I thought of, okay, now I can take a risk. So even if I lose on one thing, I still have, a place from where I can get the leads. And from LinkedIn also, I would say number of people who were contacting me were majorly retakers because I was writing content especially for retakers.
Mm.
So from
Right.
there, it even increased my confidence also because when I was reading, I was writing, so I could even learn more about the skill.
Right.
So through that, it became more a firm decision that I think this will be the right way, right content. And 21 onward, I think I changed to retakers.
Got it. And when we briefly touched upon some of your business processes, you mentioned three names. One was Russell Branson, one was
Perry
Uh,
Marshall.
Perry Marshall and one was Ziegler.
Zig Ziglar.
Yeah. What can you just elaborate? Like, how did these three people influence you? Did you read any books? Can you talk a little bit more about all these things?
So when I started 2016, at that time, when when I was getting out of all the other exams and focusing only on GMAT, at that time I'm just limiting my market. So there were a lot of stress because entire financials are dependent on one exam.
Right.
Okay, so at that time there were nights and I was a lot of anxiety was there.
Right.
Okay, so I was trying. I was working from 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. and
Wow.
all time onto this, trying everything possible.
You mean 12 midnight?
12 midnight, yeah. So
Right.
17, 18 hours I was on the screen, trying everything possible to create my name in this. But I was not good with marketing. I never studied, did an MBA, but things have changed completely. What we study doesn't apply.
Right.
So at that time, something of motivation was required. So I was studying Jim Rohn, I was studying Tony Robbins, I was studying Zig Ziglar, and Zig Ziglar somehow had a show on YouTube, Zig Ziglar show, where he explained his struggle that initially 2 years of his career he was completely struggling. So one of his mentors, when he was there, he said that you wasted 2 years of your life. He said why? That because you don't work on a regular schedule. You're all over the place, but you don't have a regular schedule. So he said, what do you mean? He said that you do one thing, you turn up every day, and he was into door to door marketing. He was selling this cooking utensils. It's way
Okay.
back in 50s and 60s at that time in US.
Zig Ziglar.
Zig Ziglar.
Okay.
So he said that I promised myself that I'll at every day 9 a.m. I'll be knocking the doors, irrespective what happens. So from there, I learned one thing that you have to do one activity at a specific time for over a period of time.
Mm.
Time I started calling because earlier I was like sometimes I was calling in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes in the night, and at different times the way you feel was different. So when I started, I said okay 7 to 9 because most of the students are working professionals. They are back at home. 10 a.m. they are in office. They'll not take my call. Afternoon they'll not take my call. So I started with this 7 to 9 bracket, 7 days. So somehow there was not even a single month where I missed my targets. Maybe first 25 days I didn't meet my target, but last day I met my target. So this philosophy worked with me. So I follow the same philosophy every time, when I do webinars, same time, same day, every day. How I do it, I don't care, but I do it. So this was Zig Ziglar. Then I was doing marketing. So I didn't understand anything about marketing. So I was just reading random books, listening to YouTube videos. Then somehow I came across Perry Marshall because I was thinking about getting into Google because every company who is in this space use Google. Nobody is in LinkedIn, nobody is in Facebook. So I started studying about Google, and at that time he had a book on Google AdWords, and he has also written another book on sales and marketing 80/20 principle. So when I was reading about that, so there was complete contradiction of what I was listening. So he was talking about a niche, and he was talking about firing your clients. So he said you have to just every month you have to give a refund. So earlier it doesn't make sense, but slowly it took me a year to get into that zone to fire the clients. So there was a time when if the student is not behaving the way I want, immediate refund. So that somehow gave me the confidence. And then recently, because now things have been more established, now I'm getting into sales webinars. Right now, my webinars are more of knowledge driven, where I just train students on knowledge, but they don't convert a lot. And conversion happens through sales webinar because I thought if I teach well, probably I get the students, but it doesn't work like that. So you don't teach in sales webinars, you actually work with the stories. And Russell Branson is one of the persons who works in this space. So now I have started. He has a book called Experts that I'm following, and then I'm just working with this. There is another Brendan Bouchard who's into the same online sales. So through here, I'm just learning the process of sales webinars.
Great. I have a question. You said there are, interestingly, you mentioned two types of webinars. I've heard of webinars and all those things, but you said knowledge webinars and sales webinars, right? Uh, Knowledge webinars are webinars where you treat it as a demo of your work, but that you say it did not work. And you said sales webinar. Have you already started? Has it been giving you results?
Not to an extent, because right now I don't have. There is a. He has given a framework. It's because I think 2 3 months back I've actually understood the difference between these two. Because there is a person called Dan Kennedy. He explained. I was getting into public speaking and webinars, and I was looking at my results of webinars, but I was not happy. So I was studying Dan Kennedy. He was also one of those people who sell through stages. So he's because I'm talking about all these things in 80s, 90s
Right.
in US. So Dan Kennedy is into a marketing person. He write ads. So I read his books where he actually told that you don't have to teach. So it's a totally different ball game.
Hmm.
So I've not started with the sales webinars right now.
Okay.
I'm just learning the skill that actually how you present it.
Right. Right. It's about, I could take a hint when you said that, probably it's about stories. You're going to like talk about things that happened as an outcome for others and then not actually teaching
Exactly.
stuff like that. But I think probably for who are listening, they can simply go and start their own journey in finding out what is the difference between a knowledge webinar and the sales webinar. I think that that itself should give a lot of information. I think the internet should give a lot of information on these things, and it already makes sense to me because I myself have been a part of a few webinars, not
Mhm.
from a host perspective.
Mhm.
There are ads that come on your social media: join this webinar,
Mhm.
join that, and all those things.
Mhm.
And then if it's a 2.5 hour webinar,
Mhm.
the value is only going to be 15-20% or
Yeah.
20 minutes. And the rest of the things is, one is the build up,
Yeah.
and the last part is, about offers and stuff
Exactly.
like that. It's a lot to do with the human psychology.
Yes. Yes.
Great. But it's very interesting the way you said knowledge webinars and sales webinars. That itself
Mhm.
was very interesting to me. Great. Um, okay, so now after you've been reading all these things, you also mentioned that you were not following funnels
Mhm.
back before you repositioned yourself, and then after repositioning you said that. But before that, I want to clarify one thing. When you were about to reposition, you said you had a little bit of insecurity or anxiety. I'm going to lose out on 50% of market. So you said you took to Retaker's positioning fully only when you started getting the Urban Pro dependency started decreasing. So what you did was essentially in Urban Pro, you continued to position the old thing itself. You were taking all students.
Mhm.
You used LinkedIn only to reposition yourself as a retaker. Is that correct?
From actually, this idea came from LinkedIn when I was writing about because I was just writing about my journey because when I prepared for CAT and all the exams, and it
Okay.
somehow started resembling those students,
Hmm.
and they started contacted me, so I
Got
could
it.
see more patterns emerging and connecting with them more because I can understand their journey. When they
Right.
talk to me, they tell their struggles, I immediately connect with them.
Got it.
Yeah.
Another question that I wanted to ask you, Mandeep, before we went on to your processes, right? Just for maybe the GMAT trainers listening, they could apply this to any exam. Retaking positioning can be applied for any exam if somebody is preparing students on CAT or something. In this journey, have you seen any other ways of niche or positioning yourself for these exams apart from retakers?
Exactly.
Got
This
it.
is the only thing that occurred to me. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, now going back to the funnels concept, can you talk about a little bit more about Russell Branson and how you are applying his funnel concept right now for you to get more students?
Right now, also, I'm not actually getting into the funnel side.
Okay,
Okay, because I'm not really good at writing good emails or making those sales videos.
right.
That's a learning process. The main thing that I actually changed last year,
Hmm.
because I relied on, because I keep adding things. I don't subtract things. Like Urban Pro I still use.
Great. Okay.
Okay, then LinkedIn come in.
Mhm.
Then I started with Google.
Okay.
So when I started with Google, I worked with few people, but they didn't understand my philosophy. Everybody was like, you just write the best GMAT institute and it will work for you.
Right.
But it was not, resembling my thought process, because what I learned from Perry Marshall, it's not working.
Okay.
So probably around August last year, I came across this another company, PPC. I don't remember the complete name, the company that I work with.
Okay.
So I started working with them.
Mhm.
So he was the first person, who actually sat with me and, understood the exact market.
Right.
When I was working with earlier big companies of Google, they just come up with, okay, tell me what you do.
Hmm.
I said, I teach for GMAT and I work with nobody was thinking of, listening to retakers. I was repeating the same
Mm.
information. So I was actually, I lost hope that actually all these companies, that advertising companies, do they even understand what niche is, what actually the target audience is? Everybody was like, creating simple ads, which is, run by all the big companies. And I
Right.
cannot compete with those big companies because they have a lot of budget. I
Right.
have
Right.
limited budget and I want to be very specific.
Right.
So this person, sat with me and he understood and he said, give me a week's time, let me study your market.
Okay.
So he did that. He actually, looked at all the students that were there. So, and he said, I'll take some time because it's very specific and I have to think what exactly a retaker actually, search on Google.
Right.
So it took him around 4 months, around, December. He completely changed my website, completely changed everything. So I said, do whatever you want, but give the results. And December onwards, this thing started working.
Right.
Somehow now, when I get a leads from Google, 90% is retakers. 10% are people, who are just doing some random stuff. And the overall cost is really less. So now I'm not dependent on LinkedIn, I'm dependent on Google. So I have three things now working for me.
Brilliant.
And now, parallel to that, I'm learning sales webinars. From there on, I'll be getting into funnels, because that is important. Because if I cannot, sell them in the first, because I get their email for the sales webinar. But if I cannot, retain their attention for an hour or so through my stories, it will not work. As per me, I may be, looking doubting myself, but still, I believe that I need to be good at that.
Absolutely. I think any businessman uh, has to be a salesperson first. And interestingly, you started off as a sales guy, and then moved, and then whatever you do, sales is there, is
It's a
part of
core.
that.
It's a core.
And yeah, and it is so much more interesting to sell for your own, at least, than when you're selling for others in a product that you don't know completely and you may not even believe in it. But when you believe in what you do, sales becomes that much more easier.
I never actually sold. I never need to convince anybody.
Right. Right. It's
Automatically
just
happens.
fact stating
Yes,
facts. That's about it. You're not lying, because sometimes when you're selling other products that you don't believe in, first of all, you're going against your own intuitions and convictions.
exactly,
And that itself kind of brings down the effect of sales.
exactly.
Great. So, Mandeep, when you spoke about you got 90% of the leads you got from Google were all retakers. What was the conversion from that?
I would say 80%.
Wow, that's staggering. And what is the cost of acquisition for each of those leads?
It's around, I think, 600, 700 rupees.
Great. Okay. And you said this person took 4 months to understand your whole thing. And this gave me another thought, brought in another thought to me. Now, when I've spoken to a lot of solopreneurs, right? GMAT trainers or test prep trainers are all mostly solopreneurs. And their business runs because of the brand that that individual is. And students, if it is a word of mouth, they come for that particular person's teaching. Now, there are two aspects. My first question is this: as a solopreneur, your core expertise or function in your company, in your one man company, is your teaching. Bulk of your time goes there. But as a business, it has so many other functions. Like you said, there is sales, there's marketing. You need to run ads, create creatives, and all those things. So, as a GMAT trainer now, as a solopreneur, what are the different functions you think that you're ready to outsource? And what is that you expect but that you're not getting it? This question I'm asking from a perspective that, if there are vendors listening out there, right, they may not even be aware what you need, but they think they're doing the best job. So if you can throw some light on this, it could help them.
Okay. First thing, this one, I'm not a solopreneur. I have a team.
Okay. Oh, great.
So,
Okay.
so there is a quant trainer with me. There is a verbal trainer with me.
Okay.
Okay. So, one by one, actually, I outsourced. So when I started, I specialized in quant.
Right.
I created processes, hired a person, trained, outsourced. Then took verbal, mastered, trained, outsourced.
Right.
Then I started with LinkedIn. I think for 2 years, I wrote every day.
Okay.
So I have around 800, 900 posts.
Okay.
So now I have hired a person who posts on my behalf the same post because now I'm reusing the same thing.
Got it.
And the same person, the next thing I learned about LinkedIn is that you have to do a lot of commenting. Earlier, I was not commenting.
Right.
So I hired a specific person who just read and comment and post. Outsourced, I'm not into LinkedIn anymore. Then Google, I tried myself, failed, outsourced. So right now my function is like I work with students in their final stages. Like both the trainers are trained to train retakers.
Okay.
So when they reach their final stages, they're taking mocks. So at that time, if there is a high anxiety levels, or where there's a very specific case that I just have 10 days, 15 days, then they come and work with me.
Hmm.
Otherwise, they work with my trainers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And talking about the vendors, I'm going to come back to this
Sure,
outsourcing
sure,
thing
sure, sure,
also. A
sure,
couple of
sure,
questions from that aspect. But
sure.
uh, are your expectations from vendors being met, or what is it? What are the gaps that you see with your vendors, Mandeep?
See, for me, till now, the vendors has been the advertising companies mostly.
Right.
Okay. So when I work with these companies, I don't know whether I don't, if I have read wrong or I don't know because I followed Perry Marshall and none of them have ever read about he's a Google expert, but they don't even actually listen to the client.
Huh.
They come up with their preconceived notion that they just look at the all the running campaigns that are going on, copy, move ahead.
Right.
I never see them, redesigning things. For
Right.
example, this guy, the one I'm working with, he redesigned the landing page so many times. I don't know. Every lead, he just checked with me what is the quality of initially. Whenever I get a lead, okay, tell me the quality of lead. What exactly is right? What exactly is wrong?
Okay.
And he just did all his study that okay, why the person click on that ad.
Right.
So with each step, he was deleting the wrong stuff, and I was getting the right stuff.
Right.
So probably I would suggest if there is a vendor and you're coming for to me, first actually study about me. Or at least if you don't study when I tell you what I want, take your time to study.
Right.
But I'd never seen somebody studying.
Right.
They just have they just generalize things.
Right.
And maximum people, I don't know about others, but most of the entrepreneurs also, they just outsource things because they have money to spend. And because from this only I was, taking care of my family also.
Okay.
So I was very rigid on, should I spend this much or not? It's
Right.
better not to spend. I'm okay with where I am. I'll take time to grow. So this is one thing. Second is that when even now when I'm working on the sales webinars, so the webinars is second thing that I focus on. So there are no, I would say this now, there are no many trainers who actually train how to actually conduct webinars. It's hit and trial.
Right.
So now when I look at Russell Branson, I see now why they charge so much, and they're very specific with that. Okay, I train you on sales webinars. Simple. I don't train you anywhere else. And
Right.
so companies are behind him. Tell me, because there is person who can sell at large scale.
Right. Right.
So he understood the, actually this was the pain. So I think that was the only two things which created problem for me. Rest, I never relied on any vendor
Got it.
because, and even I would say the storytelling techniques, like when I was writing on LinkedIn, so there are people who were just telling you how to create stories, but nobody actually created a course. I bought a lot of storytelling courses, how to write, but nobody actually give a step by step how you think about it.
Right.
That was missing.
Brilliant. So I understood when you spoke about vendors not listening to you, but then the second thing you said was you are saying that there are not enough people or enough service providers who help you with how to conduct sales webinars.
Yep.
That's something that you said, and you are on the process of figuring it out yourself.
Yes.
Got it. So, Mandeep, another thing that I understood is that you started off working for other academies as a trainer, and then you transitioned on your own, and then you Urban Pro was your lead generation tool, and now I see that you've scaled up and you are in the process of scaling up. That is the reason why you are kind of replicating and setting up systems and processes. Now I'm talking about this specific topic because the few GMAT trainers that I've spoken to so far, all high profile trainers, charging somewhere in the range of 2000 to 3000 rupees per hour. But you know what? One thing that they are um, anxious about is scaling up. And this is where I want to ask you to, kind of deep dive into how, first of all, I'm not asking you to simply say how you scaled up. Now, you started off as an individual trainer, and then how did you, first of all, think that you need to scale up and why hire? And can you walk through that entire process of being a one man show to this point where you have gotten people? And how did you come across? And you must have had insecurities, right? Okay, you know what? I'm hiring somebody else, I'm teaching them all my techniques. What if they leave? What if they start? All of these things. I'm not sure if it has come to you or not. How did you deal with this and how did you kind of navigate this entire process?
So first thing was when I was taking the classes throughout day, so I could see how my day looked like.
Right.
Most of the time, I was irritated because there
Okay.
was so much work and I was not spending time with my parents, my family, nothing.
Right.
Okay, and at that time, and there was no plan of hiring somebody, anything like that.
Okay.
So I think 2018 around, I hired my first employee, the quant trainer.
Okay.
So at that time, again, I was because sales and marketing was something I every day I study, I do everything because that's the main concern. Because GMAT I know. So at that time, I was figuring out why I'm not growing, like, at the pace. So I came across Grant Cardone.
Grant Cardone. Yeah.
Yeah. So he gave the few philosophies which I loved. So he was the first one who said, spread. Don't worry about the stories. Don't worry about things. Spread. Just create a video. Keep putting. So that gave me that confidence. Okay, recording myself. Then he said that the maximum pain happens, when the economy contracts. So the first person who will be out of business is a solopreneur because big companies have cash. Why do they have
Right.
cash? Because they leverage. Because they have more people to train people, so they earn more.
Right.
If you stay like that and economy goes into recession or something happens,
Right.
you will be the first person out of business. That created a lot of insecurity and a lot of fear.
Interesting. Okay.
So from there, I understood that if I don't scale, I earn less.
Mm.
And then he told me that as you age, and I could see that with each day, the amount of physical energy that you have is limited.
Yeah.
Okay, so I could see my life getting stuck altogether.
Okay.
So somehow this Grant Cardone stayed with me, for an year or so to change that philosophy to scale.
Right.
So then, next thing that I actually learned was when I hired the person, I didn't hire the best GMAT trainer. I hired a lady that was good with maths,
Mhm.
and she was, she was married and she wanted a stable income.
Okay.
So she was not somebody who wants to have exponential growth,
Mm. Mm.
because I
Mm.
cannot take care of somebody who is beyond me.
Yeah.
I want somebody with the limited aspirations. I want this much income. I want stability. So I hired her, and there was no expectation of huge increments every year. You have to tell them nothing like that. Basic salary, limited increments with time. So she stayed with me, and every time, and I just gave the independence. Okay, you decide your time because it's 1-to-1. So I gave independence. I didn't do a lot of interference.
Right.
So I learned this philosophy, and the next employee also had the same thing. And I was looking
Mm.
for people who want job, who want stability, who want a family life. So again, I hired a female, married, and same aspirations.
Right.
So somehow that worked with me, and it was never you have to grow very fast. I told them that I work at a very normal pace, because whatever I earn, I distribute, I invest.
Right.
If you have a lot of aspirations, I'm not the right person.
Right.
So it worked.
Brilliant. So, at the point of transition, now, of course, one important thing that you ensured was the core was sorted. Like they knew the subject that they were teaching,
Yeah,
but you had a brand to kind of build and maintain and stuff like that, and therefore comes systems and processes.
yeah.
So, and this was a phase of a transition for you, where you have to kind of cut down a little bit on your teaching, or probably spend extra time to train these people and stuff like that. So how did you go about solving this problem? How was it easy training them and bringing them onto your track? How did you ensure the quality? Did you do a recording of what they did, and did you analyze?
I took almost a year to train one employee.
Wow. Okay.
So because they knew their stuff, but they need to have that mindset for GMAT, and that too of a retaker.
Right.
So first I trained them on a theory part. Then I used to tell them, okay, teach me.
Mm,
And then I used to tell them, okay, I'll have this doubt. I'll have this doubt. I'll have this doubt. So they started writing everything.
got it.
And one by one, they just, memorize things. Okay, this is
Got it.
how you handle it. So I never went for, quick trainings. So in 1 year, the person was perfect.
Brilliant. And this 1 year was pretty much an investment for you, right? I mean, you may not
Exactly.
have had a lot of ROI on this 1 year.
No.
Okay. But you kind of trusted your instinct that they're going to be there with you even after a year.
Yes. And secondly, I lost a lot of business also, because when I was, sending student to them, so initially there were hiccups, because when you work with the retaker, he's smart enough.
Right.
So, and a new person cannot handle a retaker. So I lost
Ah,
business at that. But I somehow
okay.
trusted my employees. Even today, if a student says I don't like, I say it's fine. I can't leave my employee. I can lose a business. So that somehow they started trusting me, because
Right.
I never blamed them that what you're doing, and
Right.
it worked.
Brilliant. And these trainers that you hired, they have taken GMAT before. They have the GMAT
Exactly.
experience.
Yes.
And that is, I think, to train GMAT, would you say that taking the GMAT exam is a must?
No.
It's not a must. Okay.
Even if you need to be a best trainer, I think you don't need a lot of. You don't have to be an expert. Also, the only thing that you need to have is that you need to become humble enough
Mm-hmm.
that if the student says, okay, you can be wrong. So this I learned from my mentor.
Right.
So she said, "कभी hero मत बनो यार, you know, class में. Just be a normal person. Don't try to
Ah,
impress. If
right.
you don't know anything, except I don't know, I'll get back to you."
Right.
And I
Right.
told the same thing to my trainers. If somebody's, they could be smart people in this, okay, because they have studied a lot. They may
Right.
have, I get the people, who have studied more than me. So I tell them, yeah, I may be wrong here. Okay, so let me check it out. So when I say that, I rarely find anybody, getting pissed off or getting angry. They say it's
Right.
fine. So this worked.
Great. Great, Mandeep. Mandeep, now going back, you said you hired your first employee when you were 2018. And when you say that, when you use the word employee, I think they were on your payroll. It was
Yes.
not depending on the number of hours and stuff
No.
like that. You were paying a fixed amount of money. Now, 2018 was pre-pandemic, right? Now it's become in such a way that, it is pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Yeah.
And during 2020, 21, the COVID time was at the middle of everything. Now, were you doing online way back in 2018 itself?
Yes. It was actually a transition because when I started off, I was doing home tuitions. So
Hmm.
daily NCR every day, morning till evening, taking classes.
Okay.
Then I slowly transitioned, made a mix of online, offline. I offered
Okay.
online, accepted, otherwise I'll come back. I'll come.
Right. Right.
So I think 2018 I was completely online because 3 years I was into online completely.
And when you hired people, they were all online. There was no
Exactly.
face-to-face business
No,
at all.
because they don't even stay in Delhi, yeah, so they work from home.
Got it. So the pandemic really didn't have an effect. If at all, it would have only,
It actually
improved
helped
your
me.
business.
Yes,
It
actually
helped
it
you.
helped. It helped me.
Blessing in disguise. Got
Yes.
it. Now, how were your online processes way back in 2018, and how is it now? Is there any, difference between 2018 and now, or has it been pretty much the same?
It's pretty much the same processes because I never
Tools.
everything except the marketing channel changed.
Okay.
Earlier I was into Facebook, which was not working. Then I came to LinkedIn, which worked. And because most of my customers are employees,
Right.
so now it's Google. So marketing platform changed. Rest, my teaching style does change because as I read books, because my concern is, I work a lot on psychology,
Hmm.
and I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn,
Right.
all these people, and I try to attend as many, training as possible. So
Right.
whatever I learn, I just inculcate somehow into my trainings.
Okay.
But basic stays the same, nothing changed.
Got it. And you use which video conferencing tool for your online classes?
I use Skype because
Even
the main
today?
even today
Wow.
because
Okay.
every class gets recorded.
Okay.
So when it Skype, once you get it recorded, the student automatically get the recording.
Okay.
On these tools, I have to email them. So I
Okay.
have to have a Dropbox, then share a link with them, then they download. So
Right.
that save a lot of hassle, I would say.
Got it. Mandeep, if there are, let's say retakers listening to this podcast somehow and they want to know more about your offerings, your fee, and whatever you want to tell them, you know, can you talk about that?
Probably I don't have such pitch like that because I don't like pitching myself right now. That's what I'm
Okay.
just learning. So I
Okay.
normally tell them I'm a retaker specialist. This much works with them, and they simply call me, and then I have a video on my LinkedIn profile on my YouTube channel where they come through my course, everything.
Okay.
So probably I don't want to pitch like this. I don't like it.
Got it. Or what's your process?
Process is really
You
simple.
When you're onboarding a student,
Uh-huh.
so you first, talk to them. Do you take some time to decide whether you want to take them as a student, or how long does it take? Does it take
Uh,
over a week?
it actually there is no such standardization here
Okay.
because students come to me at different stages. Somebody
Right.
who is at 550 will follow a different pattern
Okay.
because that person is a bit skeptical.
Right.
So I'll take up a demo with that person, then the person will take a day or so and things are done.
Okay.
And then there are people who are at 680, they just need a,
Hmm.
5 minutes conversation. I get the fees transferred and next day we start. We don't need any demo
Okay.
because somehow I've positioned as, like I'm the only one.
Got it.
So
Got it.
that creates a lot of benefit.
Got it. And from the start, I've noticed that I've observed that, when you say there's a lot of mental aspect to the way you train GMAT retakers. What is the split, Mandeep, from your experience between the subjects and the psychological practices?
I would say it's every class. I normally start, by discussing how the things are going.
Right.
I ask this question to everybody,
Right.
and they understand that they have failed on something, so they discuss everything. Majorly their job, they're facing problem in their either jobs,
Right.
or sometimes there is a peer pressure that is
Right.
creating problem.
Right.
So from there, I start normally 10-15 minutes. I have a discussion with them. So what you're doing.
Right.
So what can we do? Rather than I telling them, I just ask them what exactly is going, and then I actually start teaching them,
Okay.
and I repeat the same thing. So there are only 4 or 5 things I keep repeating in every class.
Okay.
So after 2-3 months, it gets into them. Okay, if you repeat same thing, the habits will start changing. It may not completely go, but things will change.
Got it. So, Mandeep, take any test prep. One aspect is, let's leave out the psychological tools that you use. That is very evident at this point in time. Let's just talk about the subject teachings techniques to solve verbal or quant or whatever it is. That is one side. And then obviously there is a lot of mock tests, right? That plays a very key role for them in preparing, creating that atmosphere. Now, there are two aspects to this whole mock test process. One is you need to prepare content or questions, which is quite a challenging thing as far as GMAT is concerned, from what I've spoken to others. That's how I got to know that. Second is creating that atmosphere, because since it's an online thing, you kind of, some people simulate, some people. So, what are your practices when it comes to how near, how close do you go to simulating the exact atmosphere for students for mock tests?
Because these days you can take a test from home.
Right.
Okay, so we don't have to create an environment because you can use sit on the same laptop, same chair, same table,
Right.
and take the exam. So that means that environment is already there.
Right.
The only thing that I train them is actually how to behave in the exam,
Okay.
because even in the GMAT test centers, it's pretty much very comfortable.
Okay.
Okay, so environment to an extent it's 10%.
Okay.
Okay, major is like how you behave while taking the test.
Okay.
So normally this is something I do is like when I train a student, so when they're taking a mock, I ask them to record it. So with the help of Zoom, so Zoom is going on, meeting is going, and this recording is happening, screen sharing is happening, and I tell them, wear a headset and just, whatever you're doing, just keep speaking, reading what you're thinking,
Think out loud,
think
basically.
out loud actually. So read out loud,
Right.
think out loud.
Right.
So then I get the recording.
Okay.
So through that recording, I get to know exactly what the problem is, and I make that student listen to that recording.
Mm.
So I
Right.
give them the feedback. This is the problem. This is the solution. But first, listen to yourself, because
Right.
listening to this to ourselves is difficult.
Right.
So once they start listening to them, they realize that okay, this is where I'm getting anxious. I tell them, okay, this is the area where you get anxious.
Right.
This is how you can control it.
Right.
So once the student gets trained on that, it doesn't matter where the person is sitting because now he can control his internal things.
Got it.
So it works.
Got it. And to take mock, is there any platform that you subscribe? Is somebody offering a mock test prep or something like that?
Yes. So I have my mock tests. I use this. Well, it was Quiz Egg. Now it has Testmos. where I have created all the quizzes and mocks.
Okay.
Okay, apart from that, I use official mocks, and there's another company, Experts Global, which is also into the same space.
Uh-huh.
So they have created around 15 mock tests, which are adaptive. My mocks are not adaptive.
Okay.
So they have the adaptive mocks, so that I follow.
Okay. So you don't really spend time and effort in creating questions and stuff. This is
No.
also something that you take help from outside.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So content creation is not really a problem that you're facing.
No.
Got it. Got it, Mandeep. Mandeep, I think I've asked you. Your this discussion has been very unique because I've never spoken to trainers so much about sales and marketing, because that's exactly what I've been trying to
Mm.
understand from people.
Mhm.
And you seem to have cracked a lot of processes, and you spoke in depth about sales and marketing and how things have worked for you. So thank you very much. Now I'd like to, this is something that I'm starting new. I was thinking, beyond all the serious questions, let me put together some fun questions. This
Sure.
may be part of the recording or not. If you are not comfortable, you can also say,
Sure.
what is this question? But
Mhm.
just, let's try to have a 10-minute
Sure.
of fun.
Mhm.
So here's my first question to you. So if you could use only one word to describe the GMAT, what would it be and why? This may not be a fun question also, but yeah, light question.
Probably it can't be a light question for me. So it's a psychology.
Right.
It's not knowledge.
Mm. Okay, interesting. So, okay, one question, Mandeep. From the start, I can clearly see that you've been focusing on the psychology. The moment you talk about retakers have already gone through the grunt of going through the topics and all those things, and psychology is where they're failed, and that's where you're helping them. But tell me something. What, according to you, is the purpose of GMAT? GMAT is done for people who want to do business education abroad. And at this point, what do you think those guys are? What basis are they filtering these students on? Is it psychologically more weightage, or is it also to do with the topics that they test the students on?
Basically, it's a mixture of two because through topics they actually test you on psychology.
Okay,
Because in quant there is something called data sufficiency, which is more of logic. It's not
right.
knowledge. So
Okay,
it's like you have to be aware at that time what you're doing.
okay,
Then there is critical reasoning.
okay,
So they'll give you the situation based on that, how you actually assume things, what you evaluate. So they're just testing you. When they're giving you reading comprehension, they expect you to take a decision based on that limited information that you have.
right,
So this is what a manager requires.
right, right.
So, through those questions, they test you on the psychology of what is required in the business world.
Eventually, they're looking at how quickly a person can make a decision with probably limited information. It
Exactly.
all boils down to this.
Exactly.
Great, great stuff. My next question for you
Hmm.
is this: if you were stranded on a desert island with only one GMAT prep book, which book would you choose and why?
I think we don't have a choice. It's only official guide. So that's the only
Oh,
book available.
I was probably expecting some book by some psychological book is what I was thinking. Okay, cool. Okay, if GMAT was a food, what kind of food would it be and why?
Whatever requires a lot of effort. I think an hour, proper. What I don't know the English name of an hour, because you have to do a lot of effort to eat it.
Anar is
I don't know. It's like
pineapple, right?
not pineapple.
Pomegranate.
Yeah, pomegranate. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I get confused between
I
pineapple and
got it.
pomegranate in a Hindi name.
Huh.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you think pomegranate requires a lot of
Yeah,
effort.
yeah. It's not easy to eat it.
Okay, interesting. Okay, if you had to give a GMAT themed TED talk, what would be the title of your talk and what would you discuss in that?
Again, I'll tell them exactly how you actually prepare for it, because don't focus on lot of knowledge. Work with limited knowledge, because over knowledge is is disastrous. So this would be the heading. Don't collect knowledge.
Knowledge is overrated for GMAT.
Overrated for GMAT.
Got it. If you could pick a celebrity to take GMAT, who would it be? Who would you choose and why?
Steve, right now I would say celebrity. I think Amitabh Bachchan will be the better one because of intelligence, and he
Sorry, who
has
is that?
Amitabh Bachchan probably will
Amitabh
be
Bachchan.
the, yeah, because we need a good control over language, so
Okay,
he has it,
okay,
and he has the patience to handle it.
great. If you could go back in time and give your younger self one piece of advice about the GMAT, what would it be?
Don't think a lot and work on your concentration.
Got it. Uh, is there any tools or, let's say, now, Mandeep, one thing, I myself am going to take away from this discussion is this: forget GMAT, test prep, and all those things. What sticked to me was when you spoke about anxiety, right? Anxiety cannot exist in a place of concentration. I think this is very basic. It is easy to understand. What would, I, for a layman who's not taking any test prep, for an everyday person also undergoes moments of anxiousness, right? What are the things that you would recommend for somebody to kind of build their concentration?
First thing, to build up concentration, you need, I think, two or three things.
Okay.
First one is that you need to have something which is beyond you. Beyond in the
Mm.
sense, like, we are mostly, entangled in ourself. Me,
Okay.
me, 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 me. And when we are thinking about ourselves, everything is fucked up. Nothing is working on our life.
Right.
So you need to have something which is beyond you. So,
Okay.
for example, I take up GMAT, which is beyond me. Okay. Secondly, I work on gratitude. So
Right.
every day, probably 10 minutes in the morning, I just go through the incidences or the time that I spent with the family. Then I just thankful to the students that I teach, because I tell every student that because of you, I'm just living this kind of life.
Right.
And the last one is abundance mindset. So when you ask me about, when you were training your employees, was there a fear that they will open up, they can be a competition? So from there, I learned about the abundance. I train them, I treat them so well. I actually follow this, and I tell them, create your LinkedIn profile so that you can get the jobs. You should have a presence as an independent trainer. So they get the offers from the GMAT companies, but they don't leave. So I live with this, mindset that even they become my trainer, there's a lot of things, available. So I get my share.
That's brilliant. Great. Another fun question. Of all the fictional characters that you've come across, who would you choose? Who do you think would be the easiest to prepare for a GMAT?
Fictional characters. Actually, I don't read fiction.
Or even in a movie, some character that you've come across. You know what? It's easy to train this guy for a GMAT.
Ranveer Singh will be the better person because you don't take things seriously.
Interesting. Okay. The reason why you chose him is very interesting. He does take things very seriously. Yeah. No, couple of things for me. What is striking me is I used to wonder, what's the purpose of these fun questions going to be?
Hmm.
But it's not the answers. It's more, why you choose that answer gives another insight. Because what
Yeah,
you're trying to say by choosing Ranveer Singh is, don't take things seriously. Just chill, and
yeah,
then just enjoy the process, maybe.
yeah.
And I'm sure it'll help. And one final stupid fun question. I'm also a little.
Mhm.
Only your answers are kind of helping me
Okay.
remain sane because the questions are not that bad. Only after you answer, but
Mhm.
when I'm asking the question, it's so stupid to me. If you had to describe the GMAT as a movie, what
Mhm.
movie would it be and why?
I think Bhul Bhulaiya.
Sorry?
Bhool Bhulaiya.
Bhool Bhulaiya.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, it's an
fine.
Akshay Kumar movie where
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was
yeah. It's that movie is made in different languages, so
languages
luckily
also. Yeah,
yeah. It's about this ghost in one
ghost in one
home,
room. Yeah, so
one
you need
palace sort of
somebody
thing.
to understand that the ghost is not there.
Wow. Okay. Mandeep, you know what? At the end of this thing, I'm actually thinking, boss, are you a GMAT trainer or are you a psychological coach or a mind coach and all those things? Look, I've also spoken to mind coaches, by the way, and trust me, you being a GMAT coach, you equally come across like a mind coach. And some of the simplest of things that you've told has been very insightful and impactful to me.
Yeah. So actually, psychology is something is my interest.
Okay,
GMAT is my profession.
right. It's a perfect combination,
Yep,
actually.
yep.
And I think, you know what, just very for a light thing, what I'm thinking is
Huh.
you have to become a mind coach for all test preps, basically.
That's the dream. That's why sales webinars are there.
Great. And you know what I realized? Another thing that you could probably contribute and help. I'm just putting it out there. And
Sure.
if you are probably, interested, I
Mhm.
can totally connect you with two people that are top of my mind right away. Both of them are GMAT trainers, and both of them are trying to scale. Both of them great trainers. And I think, would you be open to coaching GMAT trainers to scale? Right. Is that a conflict of interest for you?
No, it's not conflict of interest. Right now, I am working on something, so parallel to that, I don't take up anything
Right,
because
right.
I can't focus on two things.
Got it, Mandeep. Great. Um, that's totally fine. The point I was trying to make is it was not really about getting to train them, but to just
Mhm.
communicate that, you know what, you're actually have succeeded things that other people are still trying.
Understand.
And it's amazing at any point. I think if you can share information in any platform, a lot of GMAT trainers are going to benefit from you because you've actually cracked things. At the end of the day, we're all, I think most of them are trying to, be their own boss, but then end up getting so occupied with that own process that they can't come out of it. And I think that's kind of where you've solved things for yourself. And that's awesome. So, Mandeep, overall, it's been an amazing podcast. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much for taking your time out.
Thanks for having me, Jagmohan. It was fun.
My pleasure.
See
Mandeep,